New information this morning in the fight against ISIS. A New York man is in custody for plotting possible terror attacks. Police say that he was planning to carry out an attack on a New York bar on New Year's Eve. 25-year-old Emmanuel Luchman is charged with attempting to provide material support to ISIS. Police say that someone overseas gave him direction and he planned to carry out the attack so he could join ISIS. Authorities say that he went to the store earlier and brought knives, machete, zip ties, and rubber gloves. So joining us this morning for perspective on this, Dr. Andrew Holt, professor of history at Florida State College at Jacksonville. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So these lone wolf attacks are just really an example of Islamist extremism.
Yes, I mean, there's definitely been an issue, specifically ISIS-related, over the last 18 months or so. There have been, depending on who's counting and how they count them, anywhere from 70 to 82 arrests, ISIS-related arrests. And currently there are as many as 900 investigations in this country at different law enforcement agencies at different levels. Many of them are, maybe high school kids calling in a prank or something like that, but some of them are very real, very serious, And in this case, this represents just one of those many concerns that federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies are trying to get a handle on.
Do you think law enforcement needs to do anything differently to get a better handle on these situations?
No, the interesting thing is that they're preventing so many attacks right now that it's inevitable that some will come through. From what I understand, there's just an extraordinary volume of effort, and it's not just ISIS. There are these other groups, of course, that are hostile to the United States or its foreign policy or its goals and so on. So there's a number of potential threats.
How do you think something like this begins? Because this man in New York obviously had an interest in carrying something out, it seems like, according to investigators.
I'm sure I would bet that they're going to find a lot of this happened online, a lot of his radicalization. If I read correctly, he had some mental problems as well, some issues there. But leaving that aside, he was still in touch with ISIS, and they were providing him support and encouragement. And as we've discussed before, there are as many as, there's this enormous ISIS online presence on social media, as many as 200,000 tweets, Facebook posts, and so on per day. I read one estimate that could reach potentially, the potential is up to 100 million people a day. Most analysts don't think it goes that far, but still the potential is there. And then we know that the San Bernardino attackers were involved online, and the woman was posting on Facebook, apparently, in private chats and so on. And so there's definitely an online presence, and it wouldn't surprise me if that's the case here, if that contributed to his radicalization.
What do you think can be done to reduce the online presence? Because it's pretty clear that I don't think anything can put a complete stop to it.
Yeah, I mean, unless you have these really draconian internet controls of some sort, which would fly in the face of of how we view the internet today, I don't know if anything really can be done. Maybe the private companies, Twitter, Facebook, these groups that provide this interface, they police this as well as they can. But as soon as one Twitter account's taken down, a new one's put up, for example. There's also this alternative web, apparently, this dark web, where a lot of these groups meet. But I'm not an expert on the technical side of that, of course. But I'm just not sure how you would combat it. The State Department has their Think Again, Turn Away program. They have Facebook pages, Twitter accounts, which are meant to counter radical propaganda. But I'm not sure how effective it is.
This arrest in New York comes as President Obama is trying to tell people that he has a handle on the situation with ISIS, follows San Bernardino. Is there anything differently you think President Obama needs to be doing?
As far as what he can do to take care of terrorism attacks within the United States, this is a problem that predates him. I mean, I was looking at the numbers recently, Marquez. There have been over 10,000 casualties, if you add them all up, over the last 15 years on U.S. soil at the hands of Islamist extremists. Now, of course, 9/11 is a big part of that. Nearly 3,000 dead, over 6,000 casualties. But there have been dozens of other attacks, whether we're talking about the Fort Hood shooter, the Chattanooga slayings of the former Marine recruiters, San Bernardino, and then the Boston Marathon bombing. There were were hundreds of casualties there. And then in addition to all this, there's several smaller attacks. The California student who recently stabbed 4 students was carrying a printout of an Islamic State flag. And a lot of this radicalization is taking place online, and exactly how you can clamp down on all of this, I don't think it's possible to entirely do it. But at this point, the law enforcement agencies are doing everything they can.
Dr. Andrew Holt, I'm sure we'll be discussing more about this topic throughout the year. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And for the latest information in the fight against ISIS, you can just log on to our website, news4jax.com.